Trade conditions in central Russia. No statistics are available, but roughly the following can be taken as a fairly reliable estimate in last October. Metal trades. The metal trade was practically at a standstill due to the shortage of fuel and raw materials, probably not more than 40% of the plant on all branches being in operation. Labor was thoroughly disorganized owing to political and economic disturbances and shortage of food products, which forced the work people to leave their occupations for long periods in search of food. The stocks of what little fuel, copper, lead, and etc. that remained were being gradually exhausted, and no hope of recovery could be expected in their near future. Physically, the metal trades entail a heavy strain on the workers, whose stamina was thoroughly exhausted by a shortage of food. The linen trade. Production was 50% off the normal and was gradually being reduced owing to the shortage of flax due to difficulties of transport and fuel. Work people were starving and absenting themselves from their work, searching for food. Woolen trade. Production was decreased 60% owing to shortage of wool and fuel. Similar cotton trade. Production was decreased 60% below normal. This applies to all branches. Many mills were stopped altogether, and the stocks of cotton from these mills have been requisitioned and distributed to certain groups of mills which have been nationalized by the government. Probably 30% are stopped. Stoppages of all mills took place during the summer from 1 to 3 months. At the time of leaving, another period of stoppage of 1 month for all the mills had been proclaimed by the government. Labor conditions, as in other trades, owing to economic and food troubles, were very unsettled. There was sufficient fuel to last 6 months. Stocks of cotton in central Russia were roughly 1,500,000 pounds, the monthly requirement for all mills being 1,200,000 pounds. These stocks will allow of another 5 weeks of work. In Central Asia, it was estimated that there were the following stocks: 3,500,000 pounds of the old 1916-1917 crops and 2,500,000 pounds of the new 1917-1918 crops. On the Volga and on the Caspian Sea, it was estimated that there was another 1 million pounds. These last stocks were, however, unavailable, as the districts mentioned were practically cut off from communication with Central Russia. This year, 1918, it is calculated only 30% of the land in Central Asia is being sown with cotton. In Central Russia, the staple trades are manufacturing in all its branches. Woolen and silk, of all of the raw material required during the period of the war, 70% of the cotton has been obtained from Central Asia and Transcaucasia, and 30% from abroad. Silk has also been obtained almost entirely from these districts, with the exception of a small quantity from Japan. With the closing of these markets to Russia, the textile industries have entirely to close down, thus throwing out of work a great number of people. The Mohammedan populations in these districts are only too anxious to throw off the power of the Soviets, and would do so at once if they were sure of strong support on the part of the Allied governments. Several risings have taken place in the territories of the Emir of Bukhara and the Khan of Khiva, who themselves are very anxious regarding the safety of their own thrones, as there is in their dominions a party who support the Bolsheviks. Silk trade. The silk trade is practically dead. All supplies of silk from Italy, Japan, Central Asia, and the Caucasus being cut off, and the stocks of silk are now exhausted. Paper trade. The paper trade has greatly decreased, probably the output of the mills being 60% of normal. Coal trade. The brown coal districts of Tula, Ryazan, and Moscow are giving 60% of their full production, the shortage being caused by the absence of the work people. Strong attempts are being made by the Soviets to develop these districts. Since the Don coal fields were cut off from Russia, the results so far have not been encouraging. The peat industry. The working season as a rule is from May to July. The laborers employed are bodies of organized peat workers from the Ryazan government, supplemented during the war by German and Austrian prisoners. The work is heavy and requires great physical strength. The workers not having sufficient food could not produce their full complement of work. In addition, many work people did not leave their villages fearing famine. In consequence, production was only 60% of the normal. Great efforts have been made by the local authorities, especially in view of the fact that the stocks of coal and naphtha were exhausted, to increase the production of this class of fuel. The results were disappointing and gave no alleviation to the situation. The timber trade. Tracts of forest were being cut down for the use of the railways and industries, especially power stations, but the shortage of labor and disorganization to traffic prevented any serious results being attained. The shortage of fuel has caused the authorities to close the schools or to curtail the period of instruction. Agriculture. The crops in 1918 have been, in every case, above the average, the government estimate of being 120%. Much uncultivated land was brought under the plow owing to the very high prices prevailing for food products. The price for the price for same fixed by the government being 20 rubles per pound of flour, which in private hands was being sold at 350 to 400 rubles per pound. The price of meat was fixed at 400 rubles per pound, but was being sold at 400 rubles per pound. Sugar was being sold at 25 rubles per pound. Under these conditions, the peasantry were making much money, as for instance, 1 deciton of land produces on average in central Russia 200 pounds of potatoes, the average price which was 40 rubles per pound, thus giving 8,000 rubles per deciton. As the average holding of the peasant is now 6 decitons, the sum earned as an average would probably be from 40,000 to 50,000 rubles per year. These prices inducing the peasant to cultivate land which formerly was lying fallow. This may even cause a real and permanent improvement in methods of cultivation of land worked in a most primitive manner, as the peasantry are now demanding and buying good agricultural implements.